Hola y bienvenidos a Conversando a Fondo. Hoy dedicaremos el programa a una crisis que está devastando nuestras comunidades, la creciente amenaza de las drogas. Miami no es ajena a esta realidad. Nuestra comunidad continúa lidiando con un grave problema de abuso de sustancias, agravado por la crisis de opioides y la letal presencia del fentanilo. Para que tengamos una idea de la magnitud del problema, según el CDC o Centro para el Control y la Prevención de Enfermedades, apunta que en el año 2023 casi 110,000 personas en Estados Unidos murieron por sobredosis de droga. De esas muertes, casi el 70% involucraron un opioide sintético como el fentanilo. Su efecto es similar al de la heroína, pero es 50 veces más potente. Un par de miligramos de fentanilo en polvo, el equivalente a 2 miligramos, puede ser sumamente mortal. Para ponerlo en contexto, 2 miligramos es una cantidad similar a la de la punta de un lápiz. El problema de las drogas en Miami es complejo, pero la pregunta que muchos padres se hacen es simple y directa. ¿Qué puedo hacer para proteger a mis hijos? Hoy hablaremos con un experto sobre esta adicción y qué armas tenemos para combatir esta crisis. Me acompaña Tomás Guerra, fundador y director ejecutivo de la organización sin fines de lucro Fentanilo. Bienvenido.
Thank you for having me.
So we're going to do the interview in English. Obviously, even though you're Latino, you are more...
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I want to talk as educated as I can, so in English would be doing it justice. Yeah.
And not only that, this is for younger people, so I think it's better to do it that way, so that way they can understand in their common language, which is out in school, in the streets.
Sure.
So that way they see the reality of this problem. So like I was telling you, I want to go from your story,
Sure.
which I know you share with everybody, how you grew up here in Miami.
Yes, since age of 10 I moved here, and so everything happened here in Miami.
Where you came from?
I lived in Los Angeles, California.
Okay, and you are
Mexican American.
Mexican American.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously over there they have a lot of gang problems and all that stuff. And as a matter of fact, I did a research for my master's, for my dissertation, where the problem that some parents will move from California to Miami was to see if their kids will get better, but they bring the problem. So that's kind of what happened to you?
Not necessarily. I think when I came to Miami, we lived in the suburbs, right? We didn't really have a problem in Los Angeles. We moved because of my dad's job. But when we moved here, it was just a different, right? And for me growing up, it was before the drugs and alcohol, there was mental health issues. For me, it was anxiety, social anxiety, and depression. That was really my issue. And so I had problems. And I was a great student, straight A student, but I really didn't have the social connection. I was not very happy at the time.
Yeah, having mental problems, I know for personal experiences that it takes a toll on the person, and obviously if you don't have the right help,
Right.
you're going through the wrong help.
Right.
And that's what kind of happened to you.
Well, that's what I didn't know there was anything going on with me. I just thought it was just, this is how it is, my life, right? I didn't know I could talk to somebody. I didn't reach out to anybody. I didn't share anything with my family. Like, it's a little different these days. There's a lot of resources. Back, let's say 30 plus years ago,
no.
it wasn't as open to talk to people, and I didn't know of any resources. And, I didn't know what was going on.
No, imagine at my age, when growing up in the 70s and 80s, it was completely different. We didn't have the information that we have now. And I grew up during the AIDS virus.
Yeah.
So that pandemic, really, a lot of people didn't know what was going on. And so the same thing with the drugs.
That's really what the main thing is, education and letting people know about resources, right? And so it's a little different nowadays, which I see that campaigns for mental health and everything like that, because a lot of times that's where it starts.
Yeah, but things like here in Miami, obviously in the 80s, that's where the drug problem began, because obviously we had all this stuff coming from Colombia and probably other countries, and Miami was the main point where everybody will go. And I lived here. I lived through it, and I know we had people dead all the time, and obviously at that time we had as President Ronald Reagan, but he's his wife decided to do the no drugs campaign.
Just say no. Yeah.
Just say no. And I don't know if it really worked, but that was like the beginning of telling people, hey, we have a drug problem here.
Yeah. I think it did some good and some bad, right? What the good was, it brought it out to the mainstream and to kids and to know about the dangers of drugs. But it also put a stigma on drug use and people who use drugs, right? And not everybody that uses drugs is a bad person, right? But they made it look like everybody that uses drugs or anything like that is a bad person. It can lead to issues just like alcohol.
Yeah.
Right? But not everybody's a bad person.
No, not only that also at the same time we had the stigma of the Latino being part of the drug problem, because obviously it was coming from Latin America.
Right.
And then the people that were from Latin America here trying to sell the drugs. So we kind of had a bad stigma for a while, you know.
Very, very.
Because obviously, you know, the regular population don't know that there's different, you know, people from other countries, and it could have been somebody from another country working on it, but Latinos were the one who got the guilt.
And with that drug war, right, came the consequences, but the people that dealt with the consequences the most were people of color, Latinos and African Americans, right, where they were the ones that got the most consequences out of anybody, although everybody used at the same rate.
Yeah. But let me take a short break. But si necesita ayuda o desea comunicarse con Tomás Guerra y su organización, puede llamar al 786-387-5000 o visitar su página web en fent.org. Hacemos nuestra primera pausa. Al regresar seguiremos conversando sobre esta crisis y las soluciones que usted tiene a su alcance. Ya volvemos.
En Miami-Dade College hay carreras en cualquier profesión. ¿Cuál es tu sueño? Somos cada vez más globales. Proteger nuestra comunidad. Puedes ser lo que quieras ser. En Miami-Dade College todos tus sueños se harán realidad.
Gracias por continuar en sintonía. En este episodio de Conversando a Fondo estamos hablando sobre la crisis del fentanilo. Además de ser un fabuloso estado para residir, la Florida se ha convertido en el epicentro de esta lucha. Es uno de los estados con más incautaciones de esta droga, lo que demuestra los enormes esfuerzos de las autoridades. En el año 2023, la DEA decomisó casi 80 millones de pastillas falsas y más de 5.400 kilos de fentanilo en polvo a nivel nacional. Y las cifras del pasado año muestran que el problema, lejos de disminuir, sigue creciendo. Y seguimos hablando con Tomás. I was saying about at the beginning of the show, you heard me that I was talking about the 2 milligrams of fentanyl that are worse than heroin.
Yeah, so the reason is because it's way more potent, right? You mentioned that it was 50 times stronger than heroin. And that's the biggest issue, is that it's being laced into other drugs, right? And so when that happens, people don't have a tolerance for those type of drugs, which is opioids. And so that small amount is enough to put somebody in an overdose and pass away. And so that's why it's so dangerous, specifically when people are unintentionally taking it, right? There's people that seek out fentanyl, right? They use it, they know that's what they're getting, but they develop tolerance over years.
Yeah.
So they started maybe with prescription, then to heroin, and now to fentanyl, where they have a tolerance. For somebody that takes something that they don't know there's fentanyl in it, that's immediate overdose.
And what, because I know I think you talked about that they mix it up with other stuff.
Yes.
What are the other drugs that they use?
Pretty much everything. We've seen it in cocaine. We've seen it in pills that look like prescription pills, although they're fake pills. They look like Xanax. They look like Adderall. They look like Percocet, right? And they're designed to look exactly the same, that you can't tell to the naked eye the difference, right? And when that happens, it's,
Yeah, no, I've seen the stories of kids that have died because of that. They think they just took a pill and then, a few hours later, they're dead.
Yeah.
And, you know, as a parent, obviously you're afraid that your son or daughter will go out there because it's not only them taking them, it's somebody else that can put it in the drink, you know, say, oh, you know, here, take an aspirin. It's just an aspirin.
Well, yeah, you can't really trust anybody else's that's giving you medication or pills, right? The only way you could be assured you're getting the real deal is you go directly to a pharmacy and you're getting your own prescription.
Yeah.
Other than that, you cannot trust a friend, you cannot trust the dealer, you cannot trust anybody because it's been mixed multiple times before it gets into your hands.
Yeah. In your case, how were you able to get out of this problem?
Okay. For me, I started using at the age of 15, right? And again, it was related to my mental health, right? When I first discovered alcohol and marijuana was the first things I tried, it was the first time I was able to get out of that anxiety, to get out of that until it became more of an issue, right? And it happened immediately. Consequences were, you know, I went from straight A student to getting arrested and, you know, Baker Acts, right? And lost jobs. It went, there was no doubt about it that I had a severe problem, right? And so for me, it was education, right? For not only for me, but for my family. When I got into those issues, my family knew nothing about substance use. They knew nothing about alcohol use, nothing, right? So they were kind of like, oh, it's just a phase. He'll get out of it until it got worse and worse. And then finally I got into going to treatment for the first time. And that's when they got educated and saw that, hey, this is more than just him rebelling. This is a disease. Yeah.
But at least you had that, that your parents were able to help you, you know, in obviously a little bit later, but they became part of the group of people trying to help you.
Yeah.
Because obviously if you don't have your parents, then you're going to continue having the problem.
Yeah, and that's a lot of times what happens is if there's no support, right, then it continues, right? But the good thing is that there is help, right? There is stuff that you can do that doesn't require insurance or money, like going to 12-step meetings. But there are also treatment centers that are available that are, you don't need insurance, although it may take a while to get in. There is help out there, right? For anybody that is struggling, right? I would say that there always is somebody that's gone through it that understands what you're going through. That's really what helped me. It wasn't necessarily my family, the ones that were able to help me the most, although they love me the most. And the people that help me the most are the ones that have been through it, right? And so I could meet somebody today, brand new. I don't know the person, but I connect with them better than their family because we've been through the same thing.
Yeah, but what I was saying is like, you know, the support also, obviously they didn't know that you have the problem, but they were able to support you once they knew and they had the right tools. Because if you, as a parent, you don't have the right tools, you don't know how to deal with it.
A lot of the times the things they do out of love kind of pushes somebody in the wrong direction, right? Because they don't know about the disease of addiction. They don't know that it could trigger something, or they don't know that lending money to me, you know, in the beginning they thought, oh yeah, he needs a ride, he's using it for a cab or whatever.
Yeah, or you want to eat something.
Yeah, but later on they you know what, I'm not going to lend him money anymore, right? Because they got onto it, right? And you learn this over time, and a lot of times this is not a conversation that people have at a young age, right? That's something I always bring up when I'm working with clients to say, hey, was there a conversation with you and your family about drugs and alcohol growing up? 9 times out of 10, there was no conversation, right? Or it was just don't do drugs. There was no, hey, you got your Theo over here that it's in your family. We have this that affects us. It could affect you, right? Because the reality is, if it is in your family already, if you have addiction or mental health, it's a higher likelihood of developing that later on.
Yeah, it's like, you know, people with diabetes, they're going to pass it on to their kids, you know. Yeah. Not all of them, but the majority.
But the risk is higher, yeah.
Yeah, but at least you were able to get out of it, and now you're talking to other, like, how do you do it? You go to schools and talk to the to the kids? Sure.
That's actually one of my favorite things to do, is to go to middle school and high school.
Yeah.
Because that's the age 9 times out of 10 where it starts.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially middle school.
Middle school and high school. For me, I started in high school, like in 9th, 10th grade.
Okay.
And so just Yeah, I got a lot of stats. I got a lot of presentations, but the thing that gets them the most is when I talk real.
Yeah.
And tell my story.
About your experience.
I actually spoke at my old high school, Miami Killian, right? And this was for last year for Red Ribbon Week.
Yeah.
And I spoke. It was kind of like a full circle moment because that's where I had started my addiction, and now I was coming back to share on how to avoid that.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's true because I remember that I was working here in Miami-Dade, but another, it wasn't a campus, it was a theater, and they would bring students, and somebody was talking about the AIDS virus. And it wasn't until the end that she said, and I have AIDS.
Yeah.
And so you can see their faces. I mean, even myself, I didn't know she had AIDS.
Yeah.
And that kind of shocked you because you're not expecting. He's talking about the same thing my parents are talking about.
Yeah.
But not until they see you, that you talk about it, then they don't know. But let me take another break. Si necesita ayuda o desea comunicarse con Tomás Guerra y su organización, puede llamar al 786-387-5000 o visitar su página web en f-fent.org. Hacemos otra breve pausa. A regresar las conclusiones de nuestra conversación con Tomás Guerra. No se vaya.
En Miami-Dade College hay carreras en cualquier profesión. Del laboratorio a la realidad virtual. Donde nada es imposible. En Miami-Dade College todos tus sueños se harán realidad.
Gracias por acompañarnos en este último segmento de Conversando a Fondo y seguimos hablando con Tomás Guerra. Now I was going to ask you that obviously because of your experience you decided to found this Fentanyl.
Yeah.
Y para aquellos que no sepan, F es una mala palabra y es exactamente para drill the point, you know.
Yeah, that's the point.
Is the point. So how did you come out with this organization?
Well, we started in 2023, and we wanted it to be out there, right? Because you talk to somebody that's lost somebody to fentanyl, they're going to say that F word, right? They're going to say all that. And so that's really what it's about. It's to educate people on the dangers of fentanyl and opioids, how to learn how to respond to an overdose, and then meeting people where they're at, you know, going out into the community and doing so. Because not everybody that dies from fentanyl had a severe problem. Right, so the goal is to reach everybody.
Yeah. What things you can see that are like, you know, your kid may have a problem? What are some of the stuff you may see?
So for substance use, you'll see that their priorities change. Right, they're changing their friends. Right, things don't become a priority anymore. They stop playing. If they used to like to play sports, they kind of do less of that. You see grades slipping. Right, kind of a I don't care attitude comes around. Right, those are some of the things that come about.
Yeah.
I think being able to take away the judgment out a little bit and being able to talk to your son or daughter without trying to get them in trouble. Right, because like the reason is why you want to ask them why. You know, not punish them, but like why? How can I assist?
Yeah.
That really wasn't what happened with me. It was kind of like a punishment, kind of like. But everybody has a reason, right?
Yeah.
And for the most part, there's an underlying reason why.
Yeah, and I think also peer pressure could be something that can drive somebody to use drugs because they say, "Oh, you're not cool because you're not taking drugs, or you're not cool because you're not smoking."
Well, I hate to say that, but I was that guy, and it's because. You know, I didn't understand how strong someone has to be able to say, no, I'm not going to do that, right?
Yeah.
You know, those. Looking back now, I'm like those guys with the strong guys right there, because they were able to say, no, that's not me.
Yeah.
But you know, everybody's for some reason. Their underlying reason, it could be trauma, could be anxiety, could be depression, all these different things. And so the underlying reasons really you want to talk about that.
Yeah, and let me tell you. Doing that research that I was talking about before, I learned that the problem is not exclusive to public school. Even private school has the same problem.
Well, they got more money to buy more and more potent stuff, right?
Because I asked a cop, I interviewed a cop, and he said, no. Because sometimes they even take the kid out of the public school and they think that the private school is going to fix the problem.
No.
But the problem is still there. Like I was telling you at the beginning, also people move from one area to the other. But they're going to keep doing. They're going to find another gang, another group of people. I'll tell you
what, drugs are not going to go anywhere, right? No. The education needs to be there. The sharing of real stories needs to be there. The access to stuff like Narcan needs to be there, right? And that's the real what's going to help, because drugs are just going to switch. Right now it's fentanyl, it used to be crack. In a few years, it's going to be something else.
Yeah, I remember crack. You know, never did it, but I remember crack. Because I don't know how I survived the 80s, with all the drugs, all the sexual diseases and all this stuff. But, maybe it was more education or something, or my parents were watching over me all the time. So I don't know how I survived, but I saw a lot. I saw a lot of, people get into hooked up into the drugs. What does Narcan do?
Basically what Narcan is, it's a medication that you can buy over the counter now, and it blocks the effects of opioids. So if somebody's overdosing on any opioid, it's a nasal spray that you spray into somebody's nose, and it will block the effects for 30 to 90 minutes. So it will buy time for the ambulance to get there. It's not in place of calling 911, but it is a good tool, which the numbers have went down last year. You talked about 2023. We were at the highest it's ever been, 110,000. Last year it went down to around 80,000.
Wow.
Big reason because the access to this, and we're hoping it stays that way, but we don't know which direction it's going to be.
Yeah, but this is like an easy fix, because obviously it's not going to erase the problem.
What it does is somebody that dies cannot find recovery, right? And so that's what our mission is, to save lives. It's not to push anybody to get into recovery, although we will help you find that. It's first to save your life first, to make sure you're alive first.
Yeah, of course, because that's what I want to make the point, that this is just a fix. So you won't die, but still the education needs to be there.
Absolutely.
And having groups like your organization to go from school to school or other places to talk to the kids, about the dangers of drugs.
100%.
Because they don't know that you may seem cool, but you don't know what the other people are thinking about you. Because that's another thing. You think, oh, I'm cool, I'm doing drugs, I'm smoking, but you look like a fool,
Well, it's a number of different reasons, but whether you're trying for the first time or you have a severe problem, right, there's always a risk there, right? And we want, ultimately, we don't want anybody to use drugs. We want them to be abstinent, to have the safest opportunity, but not everybody goes that route. And so what we do is we show love no matter what. That's a mother, a father, brother, sister that may be using drugs, and we want to show compassion, because it can get to that point where it's no longer a choice. It's now an obsession, right? And so we want people to know there is help.
And that's why I have like this thing with legalizing marijuana. What is your thought on that? Because I think that you legalize it, that's where you start with the marijuana.
Well, there's a couple of different views to it, right? One view is that when it is legalized, that means it's regulated. So you can be assured there's no other things in it, like fentanyl or any other thing. That's the same thing with any other drug, too. If it is regulated, there's not going to be fentanyl in it. There's not going to be anything in it. So there's that view on that. People are not going to die as much. You may get people start using.
They're going to see better,
but they're not going to die, right?
No, yeah.
So that's the reason when it is regulated, you avoid where you're going to die from it, right? Yeah,
because they're saying it's used mostly for medical reasons, but I know that that could be an excuse just to have a nice time.
I'll tell you this one. I mean, alcohol is, in my mind, is way worse than marijuana.
Really?
100%, because there's upwards of 180,000 deaths a year related to alcohol, whether it's car crashes, whether it's physical issues, it affects every part of your body, right? Although it's legal, it doesn't seem as bad.
Yeah. Right? Especially when you go to a college, when you have those frat parties and start drinking a lot. They don't know that
it's common. It's like a rite of passage, but all the way some people may fall into that. Yeah.
It's funny because we are short of time, but I'm going to tell you the story. My dad, when we were growing up, not here in Puerto Rico, he had a full wall of alcohol, different drinks, JB, whiskey, rum and everything. I never saw anybody drink from them. They were just display.
Wow.
So even now, I may go out and have a drink, but it's not like I'm addicted to it or anything like that. So sometimes I think it does takes from yourself being able to say no. And obviously when you're 10, 13, it's a little bit difficult to say no. But once you start growing up, becoming an adult, then if you're in that problem, I have no.
There's a point where you cross, and then it becomes an issue. And with alcohol, if you become physically addicted, if you stop taking it, guess what? You get into bad shape. You get withdrawals, and that can be deadly.
Oh yeah. So I've seen people in this business. You see people with drug problems and also with alcohol problems, and it's sad. But it's what you say, it's never going to stop. This is something that's always going to happen. Yeah. But that's the way it is. Tomás, I'm so happy that you came here. I'm glad that you share your story, and also, that people will contact you.
Yeah, we're happy to help.
For those, parents, especially parents that have any issues with their kids, so you can help them, shape them in the right way.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Si necesita ayuda o desea comunicarse con Tomás Guerra y su organización, puede llamar al 786-387-5000 o visitar su página web en fent.org. Con esto concluimos este episodio de Conversando a Fondo. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos. Recuerda que puedes ver todos los episodios de Conversando a Fondo visitando nuestro canal de YouTube en youtube.com/MDC-TV o escaneando el QR code que aparece en pantalla. No olvide suscribirse para recibir notificaciones sobre nuevos episodios de este y otros programas de MDC-TV. Yo soy Tony Leal y te espero en el próximo episodio de Conversando a Fondo. Hasta entonces, que tengas un excelente día.